Good afternoon, my name's Brian Gerrish and I'm here at the southern end of Central Park in Plymouth, Devon, and for those of you overseas, that's the southwestern part of the United Kingdom. And we're having a little bit of a guided tour today to look at some of the artwork in Plymouth which has appeared over the last few years. It's very curious, and when I talk to a lot of residents, they don't really understand why it's there, or who decided it should be there, or how much was paid for it. So behind me I've got this very interesting stainless steel bird, which I believe is connected to ISIS. And I know that at the moment Bill is just taking a shot of it so that you can see the scale. Now this appeared very quickly. Nobody I know understands the significance of this piece of artwork. And Plymouth's not alone in being one of a number of cities around UK that's now introducing very strange and sometimes very depressing so-called works of art. So enjoy this one, and we'll shortly take you on to another location in the city. You guys know what the New World Order is?
Yeah, Osama bin Laden.
No.
No, you don't.
I don't know what you're on about.
Okay, when you go onto Google, put the New World Order in and see what you get on the websites.
Is it one of them Matt Pussy Oaks, please?
It'll affect your
Allow it, man.
it'll affect your life. Well, here we are. We're just a short distance away from Plymouth railway station, and just behind me you will see a totem pole. This is another one of the mysterious works of art that have appeared in Plymouth over the last few years. If we look at the totem pole, it's covered in a number of different animals and birds. We've got everything from lizards to penguins. There's some bees in the centre, just about halfway up. We've got a creature which looks like an iguana. We've got what looks very much like a rose. Some people have suggested a Masonic rose. And at the very top, we've got a number of birds. For me, as a resident of Plymouth, this is a very interesting piece of artwork because it suddenly appeared. I've no idea of its direct relevance to Plymouth. I have no idea of its meaning, and I have no idea of who actually caused it to be placed here. I think many people in Plymouth at the moment who are worried by how much they're spending on council tax would like to know how much was spent on this so-called piece of art. But as you will see as we continue our journey around Plymouth, this is just one of a number of works of art which have appeared. What is their purpose? What is their meaning? Okay. Right, behind me, you'll see on the totem pole about halfway up that there are bees, and we wonder what the significance of those bees are. Perhaps there's viewers who'll be watching these short video clips who'll be able to tell us more, but we're very interested in the significance of the carvings on this totem pole. So bees are certainly something which feature in much of the hidden esoteric art around the world. Is there something special and significant about them on this totem pole in Plymouth, England? In front of us, just over to our right, we've got Wesley Court. Now previously there was a large and very well attended Methodist church there. That was sold off by the Methodist church, as it did with many of its churches, and the flats were built. And we're just going to come down past the Duke of Cornwall Home. hotel on our left, and this was a hotel which was designed to serve the railway station. This is one of the more beautiful buildings in Plymouth. But on the right opposite, where the station was, that's now been developed as an ice rink. Well, for many years now. The ice rink was the wrong shape and too small to be usable for any international competitions. I'm pleased to introduce Ballard House on the right, which is home to Bond Pierce Solicitors, but also this is the building in which Common Purpose Plymouth has its little office. So,
It's a bit like a prison.
might enjoy seeing some of the nice stuff actually.
Mayflower College, I see.
Yep. So this is down onto Grand Parade, which is the seafront road, which runs along by the Hoe, as it's called. We did have a pier many years ago, pre-war, pre-Second World War. There was a pier which stretched out here, which was very popular with people. And the Hoe was a popular place for people to come to listen to music and dance on occasions, particularly for major events like the Fleet Review. But we don't have a fleet anymore because Mr. Tony Blair and Mr. Brown and Mr. Cameron have sold off and scrapped our Royal Navy in order to link us in with the French and make us dependent on European nations for military support. So Plymouth, which used to have a naval base which built warships, cruisers, up to and just after the Second World War, that workforce of around 50,000 has now dwindled to less than 5,000, and many of us with a little bit of knowledge are sure that the naval base will close. And of course the destruction was started by the base being sold by £1 to the Carlisle Group by
Oh, jeez.
I've forgotten his name now, John Major. So we can follow through treason by these people.
They're connected to Kinetic, aren't they?
Yes.
I see you have a Plymouth Eye. Do you know the city?
London Eye and the Plymouth Eye.
Now I'm wondering whether we should. I want to be able to get a bit closer. I'm going to head up towards the War Memorial there, because we now know that these war memorials are not anything nice, but they're a celebration of death.
Sacrifices? Are they listing the sacrificial lambs?
Yeah. So that's a fairly Masonic.
It's a fascia. The statue. See where the black is.
Who paid for this Ferris wheel anyway?
Well, I don't know. I presume it's profit making, but it now comes to Plymouth every year together with European markets, while we no longer promote our own farming products. So I'm just going to bring you up round towards the Citadel, which is one of the homes to the Royal Marines in Plymouth. It's a very fine piece of architecture. We'll come back and have a look at the gate in a minute. But I wanted to show a very nice obelisk.
Oh,
I can bring it out.
Yeah, sure. Well, we're here by monument number 3 in Plymouth. We're on the eastern side of the Hoe, which is the grassy area at the back of Plymouth Sound. This is the famous place for Sir Francis Drake playing his game of bowls before going out to fight the Spanish Armada. Interestingly enough, there is a memorial to him on the Hoe, which we might be able to have a look at. And reference to the Armada has been removed. So Plymouth, in adopting its political correctness, which is more correctly known as cultural Marxism, has removed some of our key local history in the name of political correctness. But I'm standing by an obelisk memorial, which is to the many soldiers who died in the Boer War, and we're particularly interested in this memorial because of its overt Masonic overtones. We've got an obelisk which is very clear with markings reminiscent of Egyptology, and behind me we've got the grandson of Victoria, Queen Victoria, who died in 1900, and we see him surrounded by angels, and the caption on the face of this stone is "Towards Another World." As an ex-military man myself, I have tremendous respect for those who've been killed and wounded fighting for their country. But this afternoon we're just having a look at some of the monuments that have been put up, and it's very interesting that when you begin to look at some of these monuments and you start to think, you wonder whether it is really in honour of the dead, or in fact somebody is celebrating the fact people have died in this way. So we're going to let the viewers decide what we're showing them, but as we move around Plymouth, it's quite clear that we have a number of rather unusual, and in some cases very sad and perhaps a little depressing memorials. Well, we've moved around to the other side of this monument because as we were having a look at it, we've noticed that the name Moseley comes up, and if the camera can take a little bit of a closer look, we can see it says this obelisk is erected by Alfred Moseley to the memory of Christian Victor, Prince of Schleswig-Holstein, and to the officers and non-commissioned officers and men of the Gloucestershire, Somersetshire and Devonshire regiments who fell during the Boer War. What we were interested in is the possible connection with the Moseley family of the fascist movement in Britain in the late 1930s, just pre-Second World War. And not many people realise that Moseley was intimately connected with Plymouth and in his day had quite strong support for the movement. So it's interesting when we look into Plymouth's political history, we've had both fascists present in the city, and if we move perhaps towards Michael Foot, we start to move towards very strong left-wing communist socialist agenda. So Plymouth has a very, very dark in some ways and checkered political history, and it's still reflected today because inside the civic centre we have present the Tory party, the Tory councillors in power. Of course they do nothing but bow and scrape to the whim of David Cameron, our Tory Prime Minister. But a little while before that we had Mr Tudor Evans, the Labour leader, who was doing the same for Blair and Brown. And I'd just like to mention that on one occasion when Mr Blair visited the city, he was quoted the next day in the paper on the front page of the local paper as saying to the city, "You have been given special powers, you should use them." Now what was interesting is that nobody that I knew in the business community or the general public in Plymouth knew what those special powers were. However, as we've seen an increasingly dictatorial city establish itself, I wonder if it was those powers to which he was referring. So around this city, we haven't got time to show all of it to you, but there is an enormous number of CCTV cameras watching the public as they move around. We even have motor cars or motor vans with cameras attached. These look like some of the Google recording vans, but they're not to do with Google. They are simply cameras which are going around recording people because any one of us could be deemed to be potential criminals. We've had some roadworks in the city recently, not too far away from here, about a quarter of a mile. And people in Britain will recognise what I'm speaking about, but we now have enormous yellow gantries over the road which have CCTV cameras and infrared cameras recording the movement of every vehicle in and out of the city. So Plymouth has, in my mind, become one of the most watched and spied upon cities in UK, and in an area of Plymouth called Devonport, which is around the old military base, the naval base. At a particular point, I think about 2 years ago, they trialled CCTV cameras which were actually attached to the helmets, to the hats of police officers. So when you met your friendly Bobby in the street, he was actually filming you as a potential criminal. And this is a very sad state of affairs in Great Britain, which of course used to pride itself on its freedom and democracy. Right, so we're taking a look here at the War Memorial in Plymouth, and this is to those who fell in the 1914 to 1918 war and the Second World War, 1939 to 1945. I know that there's another war memorial of the same design in Chatham. It's a major war memorial, principally naval deaths. And what we're interested today is the actual look of the war memorial itself and some of the symbology on it. As we move towards the top of the column, we can see just under the globe, which I think would originally have been a copper, so probably a golden globe. Underneath we're looking at gargoyle type figures which have wings, and it's difficult to see from ground level here, but as we get closer to them we ask just what the significance of these figures is on a memorial to those who've fallen fighting for their country.
Oh, she's staying a phoenix. Is she? Or is it?
This is the Barbican.
Well, we're coming round into the Barbican. To show you the prawn, Mayflower steps for the you haven't seen it yet. So we're now in the Barbican, Plymouth, and just on our right is Mayflower Steps, where the Pilgrim Fathers left for their voyage to America. And just in the near distance we've got another fine piece of sculpture which is a mythical sea creature. It caused great controversy when it was initially erected, which I'd guess I think was about 12 years ago, maybe a bit longer than that now. The nickname was Plymouth Prawn, but nobody really explained what the purpose of it was or what the significance was. And I look at it and I think there must be more to this than the average member of the general public realises. Well, we're stood here with our backs to the Guildhall in Plymouth, and we're just having a look at the architecture of the main shopping centre. This arose out of following the bombing of Plymouth by the Luftwaffe in the Second World War, which did extensive damage, and very shortly afterwards the idea was born for the Abercrombie plan, which was to rebuild the city to a futuristic style, effectively to show that Plymouth wasn't beaten. And the plan started immediately after the war, but the first result was that Plymouth City Council, as it was, demolished, I think, more buildings than the Luftwaffe did, and then all of this Portland stone structure was started, which some people love and many people hate. But one of the biggest consequences was the fact that what had previously been a city that had grown naturally was now overtaken by the master plan, Abercrombie plan, and many people find the layout quite soulless. And of course the wide streets mean that the wind coming straight in off the English Channel blow up and down the city. So it's open for debate whether this is a beautiful city or not. It's caused huge controversy, and I think many people would think that the then futuristic design was something that lacked a human quality. Well, we're here stood just outside the Civic Centre at the heart of Plymouth, and at the moment we're focusing on another piece of strange and interesting artwork which has appeared in the city, and that is a dragonfly obviously coming out of the water on the bulrush. And when I first saw this sculpture, I was very curious. I wondered who'd commissioned it, how much it cost, and what actually its purpose was. I personally don't find it very nice. I don't know whether you've seen a dragonfly. They look attractive while they're flying, but when they're actually in the water and you examine them close up, they're quite a fearsome looking insect. So what is the purpose of this? What's the meaning for Plymouth? Who commissioned it? We've really no idea. And perhaps we might just scan onto the building in the backdrop, which is the main civic centre itself. And many people would find this one of the most depressing buildings in Plymouth. It looks tired, the windows are dirty and stained, and yet this amazing building has been has now been given a listed status. So that plans to pull it down and replace it with something better have now been put on hold. But the city's worried about some of the facade falling away, so they've built this very ugly, what do we call it, plywood house at the bottom in order to make sure that debris can't drop on members of the public. So Plymouth is a very interesting place. We've got this side just across the road from us and out of camera shot at the moment. We've got a very large TV screen which has been put up in the city, and when major events are on, they do appear on that TV screen. But personally I find it like something out of 1984, Big Brother right in the heart of the city. And is this really what our society is about? Is it about bringing the TV and daily news bulletins right into the heart of a city?